What is up? Welcome to the very first episode of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. My name is Couz, and I'm here with my partner, my co-host, Jonathan Martin. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, Couz. How are you, buddy? Glad to be here.
Absolutely, doing great. This is our inaugural show of this new show, I should say, an inaugural episode of this new show, and we're here today to give you a schedule breakdown, schedule prediction, season prediction for West Virginia for the 2024 college football season. We're going to go game by game. Each of us are going to give you our whether we think West Virginia wins or loses and why on each game. And then at the end, obviously, you'll have our season record predictions. Jonathan, real quick, let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so the primary place is on X, formerly Twitter. It's at Jonathan K. Martin. So that's no H in Jonathan, Jonathan K. Martin. So easy to find. And that's primarily where I'm at with all my content.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And real quick, before we dive into the game one of the season, I'm going to have to give a quick shout out to my channel sponsor. So we'll be back in about 40 seconds. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. Would also like to remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps that algorithm. Please leave a comment below. Let us know your score predictions, or I'm sorry, your season predictions, record predictions for West Virginia for 2024, and subscribe to the channel. Help me get to the next big magic number of 10,000 subscribers. All right, Jonathan, let's go ahead and kick it off with game one, man. Penn State, obviously a very exciting game, arguably the biggest non-conference home game in Morgantown since LSU came to town. And some would even argue it's bigger than that. LSU came to town, I guess, about 12, 13 years ago.
Yep.
Something like that. And they're a regional rival too, so much bigger game. But big noon kickoff on Fox, 12 p.m. kick. Obviously, a lot of fans disappointed in that. We're wanting a night game. I've got confidence that the Mountaineers can get it done this year after losing to Penn State last year. But I just think Penn State's going to be too deep and too talented. And I think at the end of the day, in a very tight game, Penn State comes out of Morgantown with a win.
Okay, well, yeah, so it took us all of one game to disagree, Couz. So I guess I'll set the stage, kind of my thoughts. It was clear from Neil Brown just the other day from Big 12 Media Day, they're playing the disrespect card again. And what better way to get that respect than to knock off top 10 team in Penn State at home? It's a stage setter. It's going to parlay into the schedule that we get into. It can affect other games, I believe. And I think West Virginia is well positioned for this game. I was one of those who advocated for a night game. Big noon, however, is Fox's premier game, as you noted. I have it a West Virginia win. When the schedule was first released, I didn't put a whole lot of thought in it. I went off of gut, and I just wrote down what I thought. I didn't post it. I didn't share it. And this was one from the very beginning I felt West Virginia would win. And so, again, it maybe took us just one quick game, but I'm going to disagree with you here on this one, and I've got West Virginia winning an extremely close game in Morgantown.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're right on them. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Let's make that very clear. I would rather be wrong than West Virginia come out with an L. But yeah, real quick before we move on to the next game, I forgot to plug our brand new Twitter account. This is a brand new show. Along with it, we have a brand new Twitter/X account. Go to @GBBreakdown_. It's @GBBreakdown_ stands for obviously Gold and Blue Breakdown. Come interact with us there on X. We would love to interact with the viewers out there and the listeners. So it's a brand new Twitter account, so be looking for it. So your you have us 1-0. I've got us at 0-1. Game 2, it's obviously the FCS game. In most cases, I wouldn't say a whole lot about this game, but this Albany team, obviously, I'm marking it as a W first off. But I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk per se, because Albany, one of the better FCS programs in the country, they did play in the FCS National Championship game last year, I believe. So, again, West Virginia can't sleep on Albany. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I guess we'll get it out of the way quick. It's a win for me, but in the words of Lee Corso, not so fast.
Right.
I don't think it's a game where West Virginia shows up and just rolls. Albany's a pretty good football team. Now, they lost their bowl game last year handedly, but they had won 6 or 7 in a row leading up to that game. I might take a beating for this, but they played Marshall very competitive in Huntington. Let's take that as you may. We saw last year against Duquesne, it was a rough start. Eventually, the talent won over. And another key thing here for me is what happens in week 1. If your prediction is correct and West Virginia struggles maybe a little bit or stumbles there and loses that game against Penn State at home, there's so much momentum for that game and so much anticipation. What if it's a crushing loss at the end? Just a lot of things can play out. So I think you have to be careful here with Albany. But in the end, West Virginia should win the football game. So I have it down as a win.
Agreed. All right. Game 3. Backyard brawl, baby. This time, West Virginia going to Pittsburgh. They have a chance to get the sour taste out of their mouth from the game 2 years ago where they lost a game that they should have won. We all remember how it happened, the pick 6 to seal it for Pitt. And last year, obviously, Pitt came to Morgantown. West Virginia pretty much trounced them. I say trounced them. The score didn't indicate it, but West Virginia dominated the game, 17-6. But Pitt was a really bad football team last year. I do think Pitt will be better in 2024. To me, there's still a big question mark at quarterback, but they do still have a lot of good pieces returning, most notably their tight end, Bartholomew. He's a really good player. But at the end of the day, I still think West Virginia pulls out the W. I think West Virginia is going to be the better team, the more talented team. So I'm giving West Virginia a W against Pitt in the backyard brawl on September the 7th.
And so that win last year over Pitt was with a backup quarterback as well. So it's worth noting. Also worth noting that the home team has won the last 3 times in the backyard brawl. Listen, Pitt was awful last year. Let's just call it what it is. 3-9. They were not good. They got a new offensive coordinator. Got a new quarterback from Alabama that they're pretty excited about, I hear. I do think they'll be a better football team. We also know that it's kind of been in the story in the news here lately that they have included the West Virginia game in some season ticket packages. I believe that was done for 2 reasons. 1, to draw up excitement, and 2, to try and keep West Virginia folks from being the majority in the crowd. I don't know that works. Having said that, I think the game means too much. I think West Virginia is too good. So for me, West Virginia starts 3-0, and they go to Pittsburgh, win the backyard brawl.
All right. So you have them 3-0. I have us 2-1 after the first 3 games. Now we start conference play. West Virginia opens conference play with a chance to get a really bad taste out of their mouth from 2 years ago, the last time they played Kansas. They didn't play last year, but they do play Kansas this year in the first conference game of the season on September 21st. It's at Morgantown. Now, Kansas, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Jalen Daniels. We all know Lance Leipold is a very, very good football coach. ESPN had Kansas, according to their FPI, Kansas is the favorite to win the Big 12 this year. And Kansas is going to be a good football team. However, I think West Virginia is going to be fired up for this game. They're going to want to revenge from that game 2 years ago that they lost in heartbreaking fashion. And I think it's in Morgantown, so I think the crowd will be excited. I don't think this will be a letdown spot for West Virginia, even though they're coming off the backyard brawl. So I'm giving West Virginia the W here over Kansas at home in game 1 of Big 12 play. What say you?
So I think we're obviously going into these predictions with the assumption that everybody is healthy, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
it's hard to predict that. But injuries matter in this game to me, uh, because Kansas is a different football team with Jalen Daniels. They just are. Um, so in week 4, how healthy is he? If he is, Kansas is a better football team. I love Devin Neal at running back. Um, because this game, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, because this game is in Morgantown, I give West Virginia the edge. And so I actually have them going 1-0 in conference play, defending home field, 4-0 so far on the season, 1-0, and I've got them winning that game. I'm concerned that Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, and I'm concerned about their defense.
Yep.
Um,
That's fair.
that's a concern to me if I'm Kansas. They've also got some things going on in their program, not playing at home this year. It could be an awkward season for them from that regard. So they've got 6 starters back from a team that from a defense that wasn't that great statistically. So I like West Virginia,
Yeah.
especially in Morgantown.
Yeah. Another thing I forgot to mention too with Kansas is, they're going through some coaching changes as far as coordinators. Andy Kotelnicki left Kansas to go to Penn State, of all places. Um, so West Virginia is not getting away from him, unfortunately. But Andy Kotelnicki, in my mind, is one of the best offensive minds in football. West Virginia fans have seen that Kansas offense up close and personal. They use odd formations. They use a lot of different motions, and they're very, very hard to defend. They keep you on your, on your toes and keep you confused. I'm just not sold that their new OC Jeff Grimes is going to be able to equally replace that. Not saying he's not good, but I don't know that he's Andy Kotelnicki good, and that could impact Kansas a little bit, in my opinion. So that's another reason I give West Virginia a slight edge in that game, and I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. That game obviously is the first game in a 5-game stretch of Big 12 play that is extremely, extremely important and extremely, extremely difficult. Now, they get a bye after the Kansas game, but then on October the 5th, they have their first road conference game of the season as they travel to Stillwater to take on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Now, West Virginia dropped a game to Oklahoma State in Morgantown last year that they should have won. They were actually ahead going into the fourth quarter. We all remember what happened. Ollie Gordon put up about 1,000 yards in one quarter on West Virginia, and Oklahoma State ends up winning. And there was a special teams blunder as well on the West Virginia side. Oklahoma State ends up winning the game. Oklahoma State is returning darn near everybody this year. They have, most of their team is returning from a team last year that won 10 games. Okay. They have arguably the best running back in the country in Ollie Gordon. Yes, Alan Bowman is not a great quarterback, but we've seen Mike Gundy's teams in the past win. However, he needs to win. If you can't air it out, you run the football and play defense. And I think that's what they'll do again this year. I think he manages the game well. They give Ollie Gordon the rock a lot. Their defense will be stout. And unfortunately, I think West Virginia drops this game to Oklahoma State in Stillwater in that very, very tough home environment. So I think West Virginia leaves Stillwater with a conference record of 1-1 and a overall record of 3-2.
Yeah,
or 2-2. I'm sorry, 2-2.
Yeah. So Oklahoma State's a good football team. Let's just let's call a spade here. They're a good football team. To me, Oklahoma State is. I know Utah got the preseason #1 ranking for the Big 12. I think you could have made a legitimate argument that Oklahoma State should have been #1. They're a talented football team. They're good on the offensive side of the ball with Ollie Gordon. No suspension there, by the way, so there's going to be no games missed, it doesn't appear. Alan Bowman is a game manager. He just has to manage. And Oklahoma State has 9 starters back from last year on the defensive side of the football. And they got a lot of production out of those guys. So for me, West Virginia's first loss of the year, that would be 500 in conference at 1-1. I don't think that West Virginia at this point is going to be able to go to Stillwater and get that win. I think that's going to be the first bump in the road for the Mountaineers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, historically, West Virginia has struggled they've struggled against Oklahoma State even at home, but especially on the road. We all know, Stillwater, they've got the fans are right on top of you almost.
Mm-hmm.
They've got those paddles they bang on the wall. It's an extremely tough environment to play. Their fans are loud, they're passionate, very tough place to play. And Mike Gundy, in my opinion, is just an excellent football coach. He seems to have West Virginia's number for the most part. And since it's in Stillwater, I've got to give them the edge. And that would put West Virginia at 3-2 on the season. My apologies. Next game in this Big 12 gauntlet, they come back to Morgantown on October 12th to face another really good football team, in my opinion, the Iowa State Cyclones. I'm really, really high on Iowa State this year, Jonathan. Matt Campbell's a good football coach, but even more importantly, I think his defensive coordinator, John Heacock, that 3-3-5 scheme he runs it almost to perfection. They've got most of their guys back, if not all of them, on defense. I think they have 9 or 10 guys coming back on defense, something like that. I think you've got those numbers. They return Rocco Becht at quarterback, who came off a really good freshman season. They've got a good running back. They have 2 good receivers in Noel and I think it's Higgins on the outside. They always have good tight end play. I think they're going to be stout up front again. I don't know what is there not to like about Iowa State. It is in Morgantown though, so you got to give that edge to West Virginia. But unfortunately, in my opinion, I think this Iowa State team is going to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 this year. We have seen West Virginia struggle in the past against John Heacock's defense. And I think West Virginia is going to lose a home conference game, in my opinion, at some point. And I think this is it. I think they lose at home to Iowa State.
Okay. Well, it's hard to argue. I'll say that because I believe everything you said. 19 returning starters, 10 on offense, 9 on defense. And those guys were pretty good last year. So they're not just guys that weren't very good coming back. They were young. They were talented. Now they're experienced and talented. I really like Iowa State. But having this game in Morgantown, for me, it's a bounce-back game. We just talked about Oklahoma State. I feel like that's going to be a tough place for West Virginia to go and get a win. I predict a loss back home. Because that game is in Morgantown, I think it's a good bounce back, and it's a good time to readjust your team to get back at it. Iowa State's won 4 of the last 5 against West Virginia. That's a concern, but because it's in Morgantown, I actually like West Virginia to bounce back from a tough loss and get this one at home.
All right. So I've got West Virginia sitting at 3-3 after 6 games, and you have them at what, 5-1?
5-1.
All right. Next game, they stay in Morgantown on the 19th of October for another game in this Big 12 gauntlet where they play teams 2 through 6 in the preseason poll, by the way, in back-to-back weeks. But the Kansas State Wildcats, who many are picking to be number 1, and most are picking at least to be number 2 in this conference. The Wildcats come to Morgantown. Really good football team. We all know Chris Kleiman's a heck of a football coach. We all know they always play good, disciplined football. They don't turn it over a lot. They don't commit a lot of turnovers. They're probably going to play good special teams. But for me, when I look at Kansas State, they had no players on the preseason Big 12 list. Take that for what it's worth. Maybe they were snubbed. Maybe they're just not that talented. I don't know. They do have a really talented quarterback in Avery Johnson, but the kid is young. The young man is young. He's going to be a true sophomore, very little experience. Many people are saying he would have beaten Will Howard out for the job anyway. Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, he's never been the guy in the program. I do think there'll be a little bit of an adjustment period for him at being so young. So I'm predicting, because it's in Morgantown, I'm giving the edge here to the Mountaineers.
So for a lot of the reasons you were concerned about West Virginia at home against Iowa State, I share those concerns about being at home against Kansas State. For me, it's the placement of where they are on the schedule, right? We're talking about the gauntlet, West Virginia now, Pitt, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State. Where will West Virginia be at this point in the season? Admittingly, I'm not as high on Avery Johnson as other people are. It's not that I don't think the talent's there. I just have to see it.
Yep, same.
However, Kansas State just seems to always play sound, fundamental football, good special teams. They're a concern to me. It is strange to think that they could be predicted or to finish where they are with no players on the team, preseason Big 12 team. That's a little strange, but I think it goes more to the point of what they think about the program and the coaching.
Yep.
This is the one where I think West Virginia takes a lump at home. We know it's going to happen. So I actually have this as a West Virginia loss. I just feel like Kansas State is going to be too much overall for West Virginia, especially coming back after Oklahoma State and Iowa State.
Yep. All right, that's fair. So you now have I've got West Virginia coming out of Kansas State at 4-3, and you obviously have them at 5-2, right?
5-2. Yep.
All right. Let's move on to the fifth game in this 5-game Big 12 gauntlet, where West Virginia plays their first game against one of the Big 12 newcomers, one of the Four Corners schools, the only Four Corners team on the schedule. West Virginia flies out to Tucson to take on the Arizona Wildcats. This one was one I went back and forth on multiple times, to be honest with you, because I'm not quite as high on Arizona State as other people are. I do think they're going to be a good football team. Arizona, I'm sorry. I do think they're going to be a good football team, but they have a brand new coaching staff, and to me it's hard for a brand new coaching staff in year one to just pick up where you left off and go win 10, 11 games. Not saying it's impossible, and they do have arguably the best quarterback receiver duo in the country in Fafita and Tedoroa McMillan. And I do think West Virginia can run the football on these guys because they're losing, I think, 4 of their 5 starters up front. Or 3 of their 4 starters up front, I should say. And so I think West Virginia's going to be able to run the football on them. But here's the problem. Biggest question mark for West Virginia to me is in their secondary. A lot of new faces back there. A lot of guys coming up from the FCS level. How long does it take them to adjust to the Power 4 game? We've all seen it. It usually takes guys at least a half a season to a season to adjust to that. And for that reason, I think this is going to be somewhat of a high-scoring game, unless West Virginia, takes the air out of the ball and is able to kill clock, maybe. But I'm just not sure they'll be able to do that enough. And I think it comes down. I think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring game, and I think that plays into Arizona's hands because of their passing attack. And I think at the end of the day, Arizona exploits the question marks in West Virginia secondary and gets a close win in Arizona over the Mountaineers.
So I think you and I really share a lot of the same sentiments in this game. I'll get it out of the way quick. I think Arizona beats West Virginia this year. And I think the primary reason that I'm leaning that direction is because if this game were Arizona coming to Morgantown, I'd probably feel a little bit different. Their QB receiver combo, as you noted, is arguably one of the best in the country and probably should be talked about more if it weren't Arizona. You've got a new coach, new conference. How does that translate over? Where is Arizona at this point in the season compared to previous years? Has the travel got them? Has the transition not been as smooth? So it's not that there aren't questions surrounding Arizona's football team. Mm-hmm. There are, especially as you noted, defensively. I believe this will be a shootout. I think it's a Houston game, a Baylor game from last season for West Virginia. But in the end, again, if it was Arizona coming east, I probably would say West Virginia because it's West Virginia going west. I think it's a West Virginia loss right now, and I would say Arizona gets the win.
Okay. So I've got West Virginia at 4-4, and you have them at 5-3, correct?
Yep, 5-3.
Now, for those of you who want to, I'm sure you, especially you glass half full people, positive thinkers out there, optimists, are probably mad at me right now. Yes, I have West Virginia at 4-4, 8 games in, but don't worry, they're not a 500 football team. We have some more games to go. Okay. The next game is they get another bye week, and then they play Cincinnati at Cincinnati this year. They finally get to play a road game that fans can actually drive to. But the Bearcats are going to have revenge on their mind, and I do think Cincinnati is going to be much better from their 3-9 team last year. They return star running back Corey Kiner, who I think is way underrated, 1,000-yard rusher from a year ago. They bring in a new quarterback who they're pretty high on. But at the end of the day, I still think Cincinnati's at least 1 or 2 years away from competing at the Big 12 level. They're bringing in like 40-some guys from the portal this year. You know, he's admitted that he had to bring in guys that fit the culture. I just think it's going to take a year or two to adjust to that. I really do. So I still don't think Cincinnati's going to be good enough to beat West Virginia, even though it is a home game for the Bearcats. I still give them West Virginia the edge here, and I think they pull off a win at Cincinnati.
Couz, if we're being kind about it, we would just say Cincinnati had a rough first season last year. they were not good.
Right.
I think depth hurt them, physicality hurt them, transition hurt them. They struggled. I think they will be better, as you said. They hit the portal hard. They've got a good running back, Brendan Sorsby, a quarterback you mentioned they got from Indiana. They really like him. If you talk to Cincinnati people, they love that kid. I want to read you their schedule in case you haven't noticed it. At Texas Tech, at Central Florida, at Colorado, at Iowa State, at Kansas State. In a season where you have added a ton of kids from the portal, that's rough.
Yeah.
And even though they get West Virginia at home, you're going to have a lot of West Virginia people at that football game.
Absolutely.
I don't think Cincinnati, talent-wise, is there with West Virginia. I think they're about a year or two away. The pieces are coming together, but it's not this year. That's a West Virginia win for me, and it really not a lot of question for me there.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Next one, week. Well, I don't know what week it is. I'm not keeping track, but next game, it's game 10. I guess it'd be week 12. They play Baylor at home. So the Bears are coming to Morgantown. As of note, the Bears have never won in Morgantown. West Virginia, I think, is 5-0 against them at home, I think is the number. They had a chance 2 years ago with what many thought Baylor was the more talented team. They came into Morgantown and still lost. Last year, West Virginia went to Baylor, didn't play well, was still able to come out with a win against let's admit it, a bad Baylor football team. Baylor is going to be better this year. Dave Aranda has embraced NIL finally. He brought in some good pieces out of the portal to plug some holes. They've got a quarterback from I think it's Toledo they brought in.
Yep.
DeQuan Finn, who they're high on. They've got Jake Spavital, who West Virginia fans know well now at offensive coordinator. They have Dave Aranda has decided to take over the play calling duties himself on defense, and we know he's a great defensive play caller. So I think that was a good move. But at the end of the day, I still think from a talent level perspective, West Virginia still has the edge here. And I still think Baylor, even though I think Baylor's better, I don't think they're good enough to beat the Mountaineers, especially in Morgantown. And I give the Mountaineers an edge here over the Bears on November 16th in week 12 of the season.
Yeah, you said it. You said it perfect, because Baylor's going to be fine eventually. They've embraced the NIL. Dave Aranda kind of took the Neil Brown model and said, I'm going to put it on my shoulders. It's on me. And I'm going to prove to you. Jake Spavital, they're going to run a spread offense. They want to get more athletic at the receiver position, spread the ball out a little bit more. But, yeah, coming to Morgantown, not much question here for me. It's a West Virginia win. I think that Baylor will be good, but I believe that they're a couple years away from getting back to where they were. And so it's a West Virginia win, and that puts them at 7-3 for me. And that one's pretty much a no-brainer.
Yep. So you've got them 7-3 after 10. I've got them at 6-4. Now, next game on the schedule, another home game against another team they played a year ago and another team who came up from the G5, and that's the UCF Knights, who come to Morgantown on the 23rd of November. UCF, very intriguing team. West Virginia went to Orlando last year. I was privileged to be able to go to that game. Maybe here's a little dig at UCF, but I was not impressed by the bounce house, to be honest. I thought it was very, very underwhelming. But to be fair, they were not having a good season. Fans were probably apathetic by that time and, just weren't that interested. But it wasn't that great of an environment, in my opinion. But that being said, West Virginia went to Orlando in the 90-degree heat and won the game. But UCF wasn't as good last year. They weren't that deep. They had some weapons at the skill positions, but they weren't that good in the trenches, and they weren't that good on defense. And I think, even though I think they'll be better in those areas this year, I'm still not sure they'll be good enough to beat West Virginia. So, and since it's in Morgantown, I'm giving West Virginia the edge here over the UCF Knights, and giving Mountaineers the win to move to 7-4 on the season.
Couz, I might surprise you a bit here, but when I looked at the schedule, weirdly enough, this was one that I teetered on a little bit, actually. I think I made some UCF friends the other day. I just put out a random tweet that just said a team that I like.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just doing some homework. I love the addition of KJ Jefferson. Doesn't get talked about enough. We see a lot of Jalen Daniels returning and Garrett Green coming back, and
Cam
Rising, new to the league, Arizona. We see Avery Johnson, the what he could be. KJ Jefferson just gets lost for whatever the reason. 3-year starter and is very talented. They have a running back that I really, really like, RJ Harvey. Just a good, solid, physical football player, can handle the load. And it wasn't just last year. The year before that, he was good. He got better each year. Here's the biggest question for me. This game is played in late November in Morgantown.
Mm-hmm.
I have one big concern with UCF, and that's depth.
Yep.
Depth on the defensive side of the football. If you take the depth on the defensive side of the football, and you bring Central Florida to Morgantown, and you and I both know what Morgantown could be in late November, I've got it a West Virginia win for that reason. I think it might be a little too much for that team that late in the season. Probably would feel a little bit different about this game, actually, if it was earlier in the year, maybe week 4. But because it's this late, it's a West Virginia win for me. I just don't know that UCF has the depth and the talent on the defensive side of the ball to come to Morgantown and get a win.
Okay, awesome. All right, so game number 12, West Virginia closes the season going to Lubbock to face the Texas Tech Red Raiders. This team is the hardest team to figure out to me, or at least one of them, because they should have been better than they were a year ago, to be honest with you. But they did battle injuries at quarterback. 2 years in a row now, they've had to play 3 quarterbacks. This year, Baron Morton is going into the season as a starter, but can he stay healthy for the first time in his career? If he can, I think he can be really good. They do have a 5-star receiver, Micah Hudson, on the outside, who can be extremely good, but he is going to be a true freshman, so there could be a learning curve. But, hey, we're talking the last game of the season here. So by then, he's probably going to be adjusted to the Power 4 game. But I'm just not sold that Texas Tech has enough talent in the trenches. I think they've struggled a little bit up front. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to give the edge to West Virginia here. Now what Texas Tech does have an awesome running back in Taj Brooks, who I'm sure you'll talk more about. But I just think at the end of the day, West Virginia has more talent across the board at every position. And even though it is in Lubbock and it is a tough place to play, I give West, and let's not forget too, Neil Brown's teams typically finish the season really well for whatever reason. Even the year they went 5-7 a couple seasons ago, they won 2 of their last 3 games, and finished on a high note, beating Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. So, I feel good about that game for the Mountaineers, and I think they've closed the season out with a 4-game win streak. finished the year at 8-4 with a win over Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because Lubbock, Texas isn't the ideal place to travel on the last game of the year. If it were Cincinnati or somewhere that was a little bit closer, and goodness knows there's not a whole lot of close games when it comes to travel-wise.
Right.
Defensively, I've got concerns. Look, Taj Brooks, preseason Big 12, 1,500 rushing yards last year, 10 touchdowns. He's good. But I don't think anybody ever questioned whether Texas Tech could put up points and yards. As you noted, West Virginia finishes the season strong typically. And I think for me, the biggest key is I like West Virginia at Cincinnati. I like them at home against Baylor, and I like them at home against UCF. So I think they're going to have a little bit of momentum going into that game. I question again the defense. They gave up almost 30 points per game last year. They weren't very good. I think West Virginia's going to have a lot to play for, too. A lot to play for. So it's a win for me on the road in Lubbock.
All right. So I've got West Virginia finishing the season at 8-4, 6-3 in conference. And if my math is correct, you have them at 9-3, 6-3 in conference because you have them beating Penn State, whereas I do not.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct. So I wasn't quite sure about halfway through we were going to work ourselves out to this. It was a little dicey.
Right.
But I think it goes to the greater point that we believe that this is a solid West Virginia football team. Certain things have to go right. It's a brutal league, a brutal schedule.
Yep.
And I think that 8 to 9, with the possibility of going to 10, is about where West Virginia is at, right? I mean, I think if you said 7, that would be underperforming. But I think 8, 9, with the possibility of 10 for me, and you and I may take a beating on this.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people watch this show and just think we're just going to say, hey, those guys follow West Virginia. They cover West Virginia. They think they're going to win 10 or 11. Is it possible? Sure. But I think the greater good, because it should be noted that we did not discuss our picks prior to this.
Correct.
So it shakes out pretty similar. And I think 8 or 9 wins. Now, here's the thing. What does it take conference-wise to get to the Big 12 championship? There's the question. I think you would probably agree 6-3 doesn't get it done, right?
Probably
that doesn't
not.
get us there. So that's the biggest thing for me is 8 or 9 wins successful. I believe it is with this schedule and this conference. 6-3, but what does it take to get to the Big 12 championship?
Yep. And a lot of people are going, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And a lot of people are going to come at us, me especially, saying, Couz, they won 8 games a year ago. They're a better team. They're going to win more than 8 games. Yes, they're going to be a better team. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But guess what? I think the Big 12 is going to be much tougher this year. At least West Virginia's – let me back up. West Virginia's schedule is going to be much tougher this year. They played all 4 of the newcomers last year who were moving – 3 of them were moving up from Group of 5. 1 was coming over from an independent and had played mostly a Group of 5 schedule. There was an adjustment period for all 4 of those teams. There's not much of an adjustment for Arizona coming from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, you know?
Yeah.
And now you have to deal with Kansas State, Kansas, Iowa State, who are all going to be better this year. So, yes, so to make my long story short, yes, West Virginia is going to be better, but guess what? So are all the teams on their schedule. That's the part I have trouble wrapping my head around, and why I think West Virginia will probably end up about the same as they did last year from a record perspective.
Yeah, West Virginia is a better football team. We agree there. But guess what? Everybody else got better too. I think my biggest takeaway is 2 things, especially if we're kind of talking conference play. Can West Virginia hold home field? They get Kansas State, they get Iowa State, they get Kansas all at home. Tougher opponents. So obviously they still get other teams, but those are the 3 I'd watch. The other thing is, can you sneak a win in Stillwater or in Tucson. Those are two big games on the road, Oklahoma State and Arizona. Can you get the games at home when you need them?
Yeah.
And can you potentially steal one on the road? I've actually got them losing, as we talked to the Oklahoma State and Arizona. But can you steal one? Can that get you that 10th win and put you to 2 conference losses, which at that point, 7-2 probably gets you in the conversation.
I think so too, because I think I see this league this year again without going. I haven't went through every team's schedule yet. I do hope to do that at some point, but I haven't yet. I think this conference. I think your champion could end up with have 2 conference losses. I think there's that much parity in this league. You're going to have teams, bottom teams that are on the bottom of the league. They're going to upset somebody at the top of the league. You could even end up with 3 or 4 teams with the same record at the end of the year, and tiebreakers deciding who plays in the title game. I mean, this league is going to be so even. I mean, the teams are pretty even when it comes to recruiting. A lot of them are even when it comes to geography and where, being in small towns and, small town America, that kind of thing, for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions, obviously, but there's just so much parity. And at the end of the day, and it's going to be a fun league, an exciting league. And I can't wait for the season to get started, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And what better way than Penn State at home?
Absolutely. And look,
I tell you, I think there's so much momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you would share this sentiment, but I feel like there's maybe the fan base is more united today than they have been maybe since Neil's been here.
Yeah.
A lot of it had to do with last year, the expectations where they were predicted to where they finished. West Virginia is blessed to have a couple guys that are on that spotlight nationally. Jaheim White, C.J. Donaldson. You've got Garrett Green, obviously, Wyatt Milam. I think there's such a rally around this program throughout the state, and that home game against Penn State's going to be huge, and could be a table setter to a really good football season.
Yep, absolutely. And look, I hope and pray that you are right about the Penn State game, and I'm wrong. I would love to be able to eat crow after that game.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be easy. I just when the schedule first came out, my gut said West Virginia is well positioned to win that football game. I believed it then, and I still believe it today.
Yep. Well, I hope you're right, man. I do. On that game, I kind of went with my head instead of my heart there. So who knows? But anyway, well, guys, for all of you listening, if you're listening to us on podcast, please give us a 5-star review for this first initial episode of Gold and Blue Breakdown here with Couz and Jonathan. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, again, like, share, comment, subscribe. We have a lot of exciting things planned for you guys throughout the season. As we get into basketball season, we may even cover some WVU basketball if we're able to. But we're definitely going to cover West Virginia football. Try to bring you guys at least one show a week to review the last week's game and hopefully preview the game coming up. But just stay with us. We'll probably have another episode out in a couple of weeks after Jonathan and I take some much-needed vacation time. But again, Jonathan, thank you for doing this show with me, man. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited about what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, this is something that we've kind of talked about a little bit to get going. And we just talked about how exciting this season is going to be. And we're on a mission. Got to get you to 10K.
That's right.
And what better way to do it here during the football season? So
excited
about it, and I think we're going to have a blast.
Absolutely, man. And again, everybody go to our Twitter account, our X account, @GBBreakdown_. Please follow that account. It's a brand new account. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to leave a link to it in the description so you can go find us easier, because it is sometimes hard to find a brand new account on X. I've had trouble with it myself at times. So go follow us there. Go follow Jonathan @Jonathan with 2 A's, K Martin, @Jonathan K Martin, and I'm @Couz206, and it's spelled COUZ for those listening. Again, thanks for tuning in to this very first episode of the Gold and Blue Breakdown. Have a top shelf day, and cue Country Roads.